Hey, and welcome back to the next episode. I think this is episode 7, more or less. And we have a special guest here. Uh, this is Pooja Kadambi. We went to school together for how long did we go to school together? What, 12
I mean,
years?
yeah, 12 years,
12
14 years
years,
in
yeah.
the same school, but yeah, we were in the
You
same
were
class.
14,
Yeah,
I
and
was
we were in the
12.
same class for about 6 years, I think,
Oh,
essentially.
yes.
The
Because,
transfer sections.
yeah. In the 6th grade, they did the transfer, right? Yeah, I remember.
Mm.
So after 12th, she went her way, I went my way. Just to, if I had to give a very basic introduction to Pooja, is that she did her engineering, I'm guessing, engineering, and then she also did her master's in the US. More specifically, I think Pooja would be best to answer this. And then we reconnected. Somehow we ended up in the same book club. I don't know how that happened, but it did happen. And we talked a lot about books and stuff. So, yeah, so here we are with another episode with a very different individual. So,
Mm.
welcome, Pooja. How's it going?
Thanks. It's going well. It's a Sunday, so I'm it's the end of the weekend, but hey, when you're an entrepreneur, every day is a work day or a weekend on your call. So it's not too bad. Bangalore has finally eased up on the weather. It's raining and beautiful again after crazy heat. So all in all, pretty good.
Yeah, I hear a lot about the super El Nino currently
Mm.
influencing weather patterns in India. I know the north of India is really, really hot at this point.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but that way, Bangalore has been very blessed, right?
Yeah, we've always been blessed. It was really hot this year, and whether climate change, whether for other factors, whatever you want to consider it, it shows some things we take for granted, right? Like a lot of houses didn't have air conditioning. A
Back in
lot
the
of
day, you mean?
and a lot of public spaces also didn't have air conditioning and stuff, and we didn't need it, for the
Mm-hmm.
most part. It was just a few weeks of high heat. But yeah, this time shows that people kind of either take things for granted and then don't prepare, even when signs tell you, like, no one kind of prepared for the heat. And then, as per usual, there were shortages of ACs or coolants or waters,
Right.
um, yeah.
Yeah. My dad has a theory on this. He says every time there is some sort of conflict around the world, the temperature around the world goes up because they keep dropping all sorts of bombs that
Chemicals.
create a lot of heat and a lot of dust, and it goes up into the atmosphere. And I'm like, that makes interesting sense. But only thing is, no one's ever been able to uh, scientifically put it into a paper to see what the effect of
I
climate
mean,
change is
a
due
lot of
to war.
Bangalore's allergies and stuff have been linked to the horrible construction and the poor management of like the construction debris and things like that. The amount of
Oh
dust in the air,
yeah,
the
oh
air
yeah, oh
quality.
yeah.
And, I always, everyone thinks this, everyone says this, but especially in Bangalore, we kind of feel stuck because the shitty infrastructure is almost like a feature rather than a bug, because that's how the politicians and other special interest groups and all make money by breaking, reconstructing, breaking, and not giving us actual decent infrastructure that even tier 2 and sometimes tier 3 cities have beyond Bangalore. Like, it's the worst in terms of connectivity and infrastructure. It's really sad.
Yeah, it is so crazy. I was talking to Ashish the last time when we spoke about
Mm,
Bangalore, and we kind of realized, or I was telling him that what Bangalore could have been to what Bangalore is such a disappointment. Uh, I mean, you really don't. You don't even, in terms of what a requirement is. You don't need something extremely fancy. You just need the basics. Even the basics are a matter of transaction between all sorts of people
yeah.
to make sure somebody makes money in the process, which is, I don't know. It seems very sad, to be
Yeah, and
honest.
it's a time old tale, right? It's the same thing when we say about taking things for granted. Like, even India as a country, if you look historically, right, we were like the richest region in the world. a
Yes,
very
yes, yes.
developed region, everything. And then due to taking, being the best or on top for granted, the complacency, the infighting, the kind of the conflict between the smaller groups and stuff, you forget the bigger picture. And that's how we were sort of conquered, reconquered, plundered for hundreds of years. And we've not learned our lesson that way in some
So talking about this, I want to take this into this very interesting. You brought this up because I have been reading uh, Frank Anthony's book, The Story of the Anglo-Indian Community.
Anglo-Indian. Interesting.
Yes, the British. It's called Britain's Betrayal in India. So, and what was interesting was the British did not come here to conquer. Let's put it this way, which is interesting. Or
Trade. Hmm.
they came to trade and they set up a company, and basically, and then at some point in the 1600s, the birth of the Anglo-Indian community took off, and they
Because the
were
company men had a bit too much fun with the
no,
Indian
because
women, right? In
no,
some ways.
no, no. So the story goes is that they could not come with women to
Correct.
uh,
So they had local
so
women,
and then
wives.
they got married to local Christians because Christianity is much before the British came to India. It's probably in the 14th century or the 13th century where Christianity came to India, and it's settled in the south part of India mostly. So you have some portion of
Kerala
Kerala,
region.
some portion of Tamil Nadu. So somewhere down the line, there were a lot of. This is a very interesting tidbit. So the um, the Christians here were Catholic or Catholic denomination, and the British were
Yeah, after Henry VIII,
Protestant.
Protestant.
Yeah, so it became a big problem for the British Empire when a lot of the officers or a lot of company men in the East India Company started marrying local women who were Catholic and then converting to
Catholicism.
yes.
But that's interesting. I didn't know I know some got married, but I didn't think it was the majority. I just thought they had mistresses and children out of wedlock and stuff. I didn't know they actually, most of them got married to locals. I did not know that.
That was very interesting when you read his book, and then he's been able to put everything together, and then you see India from a lens from actually from the middle, not from the British perspective or not from the Indian perspective, but from the middle, because Anglo-Indians unfortunately were not very well treated by the British.
Yeah, I was like,
Not
is it middle or you see it from both extremes? Because they didn't have a home either way, right? Like,
yeah.
what is a nice affluent Anglo-Indian area today was the slum back of the day because they weren't allowed to live on either side peacefully. So
Yeah, because they were not even accepted by Indians wholly. So it was a very complex,
isolated.
yeah, very complex in terms of how they actually came about and how they've been able to. So it was a very interesting. So one of the things he clearly mentions is that um, when the rulers in India, they basically wanted to fight each other, they would use Anglo-Indians for in their armies. But when the rulers started fighting against the British, they threw out all the Anglo-Indians because they were scared that the Anglo-Indians. And then the British also said to the Anglo-Indians, "Oh, we don't need you in the army because
Yeah,
you are."
they couldn't trust them, right? Because they're like, oh, you
Yeah.
don't. So at the end, like, finally, how did they, how did it land? Like, where did most of them feel their loyalties lay? In the
So that was
motherland
it.
or
So that was the biggest problem. Is like they talked about Frank Anthony talked about one of the problems with the community was they dreamt about lands that they'd never visited, and it was so strongly drilled into them that for them to give up their ways was very hard. For example, every time Britain went to war or got into a conflict, they would call upon the Anglo-Indian community, even though the Anglo-Indians got betrayed again and again. So that was something that was very hard for the Anglo-Indian community to give up. The loyalty towards the British, even though how badly they were treated.
Mm.
So it was very interesting during the time of independence. They were a group which was very stuck between
A rock in a
where to
hard
go.
place.
Rock in a hard place, really, really.
And
So
it is, but isn't it interesting that there were so many groups, right? Just like Pakistan was created because one community wanted a separate land. There was calls for a Khalistan and a Punjab, a Sindh,
yeah.
like there was all of this. But unless the book says different, I had never heard of the Anglo-Indian saying we want Anglo-Indian land, like we want some separate Anglo land that is not part of India or anything else. Did they do that?
So no, so their demand was representation in the parliament.
Yeah.
So they had representation in the parliament up till
Mm.
2020. And their strongest communities, at least up till, I think, I don't know, up till the 2015s or 16s was probably in Calcutta or Kolkata, and the main headquarters for Anglo-Indians right now is Delhi. So,
Mm.
uh, and they also have a huge contingent in Tamil Nadu. Surprising, which is very interesting because Mr. Hart is from there.
Mm.
Mr.
That's
Hart is from
yeah.
Tamil Nadu. Yeah. So it kind of makes sense in general when you start hearing. And then you also, I do remember Mr. Bunyan, who was our English teacher.
Yeah.
He moved to Assam. I think
Mhm.
Assam. He became a principal there, and there also they have a decent
Mhm.
size Anglo-Indian community. So then you start putting all the pieces together.
Yeah, and a
So
lot of them, I mean, we came across a lot of them in education, but because they were our teachers and we went to a Anglo-Indian school, but even across non-Anglo-Indian schools, there were a lot of people I know growing up, right, who were educated by Anglo-Indian teachers, whether it be their
yes,
piano teacher, whether it be their school teachers, whether
yeah,
it be like college instructors. So I think even if you look at it from a trade perspective or whatever, right, I think they are quite represented in the educational sector and the media sector
yeah,
also. So.
yeah. They were the administrative backbone of New India because a lot of, even for the British, they ran a lot of their logistics.
Because they trusted them for that side, right? Like even the civil services and all and foreign. Yeah.
No, for Anglo-Indians, it was more about saying that we are British and we will stick with the rules, even though the British never cared to stick to their own rules. The Anglo-Indians were more British than the British. So
Probably because they had something, they felt like they had something to prove, right? Like you see
yeah,
that when they talk about, so I haven't read the Frank Anthony book, but I've read Empire by Shashi Tharoor. And he talks
okay,
about, how people viewed what they call the Bengali babus or these barristers that would go to Oxford, Cambridge, and when they came back, they acted very English and lords and even
yeah,
the clubs, right? They have even today we see that, right? With the Bangalore club and the controversy around many of these other clubs saying, oh, it's a separation of it's a class difference and things. And we have in India stuck to a lot of these like rules around like dressing, acting, bureaucracy, everything, even longer than, the people who had first implemented it, because somewhere, the colonized were made to feel less than. And by emulating the
yeah,
colonizer, that's how you hold power, even among
yeah,
your people.
yeah. So the more you go into this whole rabbit hole, you kind of realize that history is not one straight line.
Of
It
course.
is. It has so many different parts to it that when you try and sit and make head or tail about it, you're like, the only thing that you can say is that as a people, we have lasted uh 5,000-6,000 or more because uh, not only we are not landlocked, but the natural boundaries of India has always been the
We were
Indus
blessed,
on one
right?
side.
Yeah,
Yeah, the
the
Indus on one
mountains
side and
and
the
the seas. Yeah.
exactly. So we were not landlocked as such, but we had enough and more. So that is how we've survived so
And we
long.
had resources that we didn't have to go elsewhere for it, right? A lot of the
Correct. Correct.
explorers I'm not saying there were enough curious people all over the world, but you know how they say necessity is the mother of all invention.
Yes.
You know, why did the Vikings have to like set sail and build those boats? Because you know they were
Food.
in a yeah food and winter and or after
Exactly.
the English in Europe faced the Black Plague and Scarlet Fever and all of these
Right.
horrendous things. They yeah, and so and if you look at it, right, which is that's why I always thought history should be linked to psychology and anthropology because it's really a study of sort of human behavior.
Yeah.
You know how you talked about the wars and all, right? The same thing happened to the black community in America during World War II, or even the civil side, where they it was a very strange time where they would enforce segregation and horribleness, but still wanted them to fight, and they
I,
had
yeah,
separate
yeah.
like divisions. And until even just 20 years ago and stuff, a lot of the military achievements and things of the black regiments and the men and women who fought there were sort of underplayed or not widespread knowledge because Jim Crow laws and the horrible treatment in the South and everything continued long after World War II.
Oh yeah, because you could. It's not. I mean, see, you can pass a law, but at the end of it, to enforce it is a very different thing,
No,
right?
it shows that when there's an external threat, like you might be like some white supremacist or something like that, but in that way, that patriotism, right? Like, okay, we need to get this done. You know, you might think Hitler is right in your mind, but you don't want him invading America, so you will fight alongside
Yeah.
whoever you need to fight with.
Yeah.
You know, the greater threat or the greater enemy kind of brings people together,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
most recently I felt was with COVID, right? Something we lived towards a lot more cooperation, communication, like a lot of petty stuff and rubbish was put on hold because there was a larger threat.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there was something that I had said during COVID is that
Mm.
for the first time, humanity has one common thing to talk about on a table, and it could be across regions, across people. It could everybody got affected. Somebody did
Some
pass
way or
away,
the
they
other,
know,
yeah.
and there's always that conversation that yeah, COVID was really bad for all of us.
Yeah, but
So
it's I think we forget sooner and sooner. Like, you know, World War II, the aftermath and stuff lasted, but because in COVID, and whether it was home, whether it's online, whether there's other distractions, right? The wars and all that happened soon after and during, or from Ukraine to Gaza to Iran, whatever. Um, because we have today access to so much information, I think the sensitivity to it has gone down so much. Like you can literally witness parts of the world burning without feeling personally afraid, or you know, literally not differentiating between what's happening across the world, and you know, because it's not
yes,
affecting the group.
the level of insensitivity is gone. We've become very It's become very
Desensitized, yeah.
normalized. Yeah, we've become very,
Normalized.
things have gone very normalized. I agree, completely
Yeah,
agree with this idea. I don't know if you, sorry,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No, I'm saying because when you didn't have news, right? When you had to wait for letters, when you didn't know what was happening, all of that, there is this tension, there is this search, there is this waiting, you know, where everyone's in the same boat. Here now it's like excess of information and the other extreme, real information, fake information, through the lens of
Disinformation.
editorial, you know, like you polarize everything. So everyone thinks they have the full picture and speaks as if they have the full picture, and you can have two people who have access to the same thing like the internet and TV and stuff, with two very very different views, not even philosophical,
Different
on what
perspectives.
actually happened.
Yes,
And
happen.
when the truth itself, or when what's happening itself is sort of questioned, or you know, you're so sure of things, I think that worry or that willing to listen goes down dramatically because you think you know.
Right. So that's also one of the things pushed me off social media, right? I mean,
Mm,
I deleted my Instagram and I
I see.
deleted I deleted X or Twitter, and it's been a few months since Instagram, and for some odd reason, even I think it does, they change you a little, I mean, they change you permanently in the sense that now you always want to get the news. You want to know what's happening exactly. But also it makes me. It also there's the other side of it that I should also point out at, is that all these platforms, they are made in such a way that their algorithms always push stuff out that gets you more and more engaged. So if you are more and more into death and destruction and oh my god, and that's how these apps are alive. They live off that. They don't want to show you puppies and cats and
Yeah, because
babies.
polarization, fear, and rage were more addictive than happiness.
Right. So it seems to be it's sort of tuned into trying to bring out the worst in humanity, because it's, I don't know,
Yeah,
it's
like how casinos
probably
are designed to like take your money, right? Keep you there,
exactly.
dull your senses, cut you off from the world, you lose sense of time, everything using chips instead of real
Yeah,
coins. Like, there's a science behind this and they've emulated it. But
absolutely.
and that's what it goes, right? When I look at social media, I'm like, it's the town square, it represents like democracy, which I know is the best sort of version we have to deal with because it gives a semblance. But honestly, it lowers to the lowest factor denominator. It's not about competence. It's not about a lot of things. A lot of our constitutions, like India, like I mean, some other countries too, when they're easily amended or changed or updated in different ways, it basically is just catering to a mob, right? At the end of the day, democracy is just one step above anarchy in some ways.
I think it also comes down to that democracy cannot always remain the same. You cannot have the same democracy back when they had it in Rome versus what you have today, right?
Mm-hmm.
It needs it needs room for reform. It needs room for needs room for evolution. More and more people need to have a want to be heard. You need to make space for it. I think it comes down to that. And somewhere down the line, there's an imbalance across the world when it comes to democracies, and it's just something that I think that, and a lot of people think that, if you create an if you create ideal situations, that should be it. Or you try and put democracy in a time freeze, that this is it. But that should never happen. It should always keep reforming to be better rather than. But it's something that I think a lot of politicians don't understand or don't get or don't want to, because it is,
I
politics is
mean,
also.
the human thing, right? Even if your system or your constitution or something is beautiful and protected, people in power don't want to give up power. While we call
Yeah.
it a democracy, everyone wants to be an authoritarian or a king essentially in their own
Yeah,
world.
yeah,
So,
absolutely. So I think
uh,
that becomes the thing, that how do you remove, they always say that being a politician or a leader, it's very, very duty bound. It is service, and it's thankless service. But
yeah.
nobody abides by it anymore. It's
Yeah, people
become.
look at it as a path to enrichment in most cases. Not all, but in
Yes,
most
but
cases.
but enrichment doesn't always have to be monetary, right? I
Monetary.
mean,
Yeah, no, yeah, yeah.
it
Power
can
for
also be
power's sake.
it also is a very legacy based. Oh,
Yeah,
I'm going to do
influence and
this. Yeah, I am going to do this to create my legacy. But your
that's
legacy is
what
not what
that's
you.
what Trump is doing, right? He wants to name things after himself and stuff. And in India, a lot of politicians literally treat it like a family business. I am here now. I'll give my seat to my son. I mean, Arey, what does that
Yeah,
mean?
so that's the thing, that also, it's at least in the in Europe, it's a lot about, okay, what can I do that leaves a legacy. What is that one thing that I can do that I could be attributed to. It's the legacy thing. Who cares about the legacy? There are a lot of questions that need to be answered. How are you going to answer them? So what are the solutions? What are we going to do? But unfortunately, it's just debates, committees, and then more
Bureaucracy.
debates on the committee, and then it just never ends. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I cannot talk too much on European politics, because,
Yeah.
it's still a thing of, I wouldn't say I completely understand it,
And you
but
guys have a two system, right? You have the EU system and the Germany system. Like it is parliamentary, but there's multi. Like it is complex. Having lived
yeah,
there.
yeah, absolutely. But also, it also comes down to the fact that a lot of the stuff. So, for example, I'll give you an example. EU decides what your laws should be, or recommends the laws, and then different countries like Germany, or to a certain extent UK, while they were in the EU, they basically didn't do anything. They just implemented it. So they
Yeah,
didn't. They didn't do
common
their.
core. They're like, all right, sure, let's do our thing.
Yeah, so they got very complacent. Like, theek hai, it's from the EU. We just implement it without realizing how it affects their country.
Yeah.
What happens? What are the things that they need to? So that was somebody. That was somebody that I spoke to some time ago. Told me about it. That one of the things that EU does is it creates complacency when it comes to local governments, like, or the local countries.
It becomes rubber stamp, right? Like,
Yeah, exactly. So that was something very interesting to me. Like, oh, okay, I never thought
and it's an
EU had.
interesting experiment, right? Saying what happens if you sign off on things because, okay, 10 other countries are signing, so it must be okay. Let me also sign it. Who is actually doing the checks and balances and stuff? It's an interesting
Yeah.
experiment. Do you, so, I mean, to shift gears from like politics, because somehow we ended here, I had our mutual friend Divya, she had a very interesting thing. She said, if you had to describe yourself or your identity, like how do you identify? Um, what are like the top 3 or 5 things? I said, I'm a woman, I'm Indian, I'm an engineer, like that was the first 3 that came to my mind. What would be your 3? Like, what is that? If someone's like, hey, just what is your identity or something? Give us 3 or 4
Oh boy,
words.
that's
Yeah.
that that's a bit intense for me because um so I am American
Mm-hmm.
by birth. So
Mm-hmm.
and um am I I'm I- did I was I brought up in America? No, I was brought up in India. So am I Indian? I don't know. That's again a very
Mm.
complicated answer because I can never
And it may
vote.
not be
I can
country. It may
never.
not be. It may not be country at all. Like for you, you could say you're a dad, you're a business leader, you're a man. Like what are the like? If
Yeah, but
someone
I'm
asks you
giving
to describe
you.
yourself,
I think I'm telling you about the parts of my identity I still have to figure out because
figure
that
out.
is more interesting, right? So
Yeah,
and now I live in Germany and it's been about 7 years. So am I American, Indian,
European,
German? Am
Sindhi.
I? I'm Sindhi too. So then that's an interesting aspect of my identity because Sindhis were never given a state, right? After partition, we were
Mm.
asked to figure it out for ourselves.
Yeah, even though it's
So
in our national anthem, right? Punjab, Sindh,
Punjab and
Gujarat, but
Sindh,
there's
yeah,
Sindh.
sure.
Yeah.
Where is Sindh, right? So technically, my parents were born in India, but
Mhm.
they are Sindhi. But my origin comes from Sindh, which is Pakistan.
Pakistan.
So, am I actually Indian? Because I don't know. It's very complicated. It gets into this complete, if I tell my kids today, yeah, we're Sindhi, but oh,
Yeah.
isn't Sindh from Pakistan? Then you have to explain to them that there has been a partition and this happened and that happened and this is how. So, but eventually, are we Indians or are we Sindhi or are we Pakistan? It's so
Mm.
crazy with that, right? But, um, so I think the first thing about my identity, if I had to describe myself, is I'm still trying to figure out what would I call myself. I think that is the first identification. Am I
Mhm.
confused or lost? Yes and no, because this is a complicated answer. But
Mhm.
the second part of it is that the second thing that would describe me is, yes, I am a father for sure. Um, and that journey has been very different from what I expected, to be honest.
Do you have some sympathy or perspective for your own parents after becoming one?
I think with my parents, I think, I understand my mom more than my father because
Mhm.
my mom was always
The,
around. Yeah.
she was the primary caregiver at home.
Yeah, primary caregiver at home. So and now we both are very involved with the kid and so on and so forth. So I understand my mom better rather than my father. The more I think about my father, I'm like, yeah, he was pretty, I wasn't absent, but he was never there in the sense, right? It
He
was,
was the provider, not the presence.
yeah, he was the sponsorer, not
Yeah.
the, he was the sponsorer. But
Yeah.
that's at least, I mean, nothing against him, but I think it's also, you
I mean,
know,
he missed out on a part that, clearly is rewarding and enjoyable for you. You can look at it that way as well, right?
no, I don't think so. I think it all comes down to nature of a person.
And
Him.
choices.
Yeah. So his by nature he had his own thing, and but also I have to add another color to this with my parents, especially one of the things um Jews talk about is the three-generation trauma
Mm-hmm.
that they felt after World War II.
Mm-hmm.
That's the same thing that happened with us.
Yeah.
So there are three generation of trauma, right? So
Yeah,
I
your
am the third generation.
grandparents lost their home
Everything, yeah,
and
everything,
identity and
house,
business.
identity,
Yeah.
businesses, whatever, everything, and then trying to figure out yourself in an alien country or an alien setting. Um, it affects your kids who are growing
Mhm.
up, right? And then my parents who were the kids, they had their own set of understandings, fears, and that trauma did carry on. And then finally it comes to me. But interestingly, I have been blessed in a way that I have been aware of this trauma. I am aware that this is happening. So it has given me an perspective where I can break away from the old, break away from this cycle. So it has been great that way. So yes, I do understand them, and I do understand the color by which they were viewing the world, what sort of uh, glasses they were wearing, or what sort of tint it was. So I would be, yes, I understand my mom, I understand my parents, but I also understand where they came from much better. So yes, it has definitely been quite rewarding. It takes a lot of work. Oof, it takes a lot of work. There are days where I'm like, oh my God, this is not easy at all. And it's even harder in a country where um, you don't speak the language, nor you have so many friends and groups and so on and so forth. You don't have like a village to help you raise the kid, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
as they say, you need a village to raise kids.
I mean, you
Anyway,
don't need it, but it's nice because I think kids grow up with a different set of sort of independence and love, and like you learn so much about the world from the world. And I feel like the more closed up kids are, right, like my bhabhi makes an active attempts to with my nephew and stuff. But today, imagine, like in when we were growing up, yeah, you're running around, you're in the neighborhood. Sometimes parents don't know exactly whose house you're playing in, and when it gets dark you come and eat, sort of thing.
yeah.
Now parents have to actively like schedule and limit things like screen time, force kids to play with other kids sometimes because they are so used to being at home in with tablets or TVs or whatever it might be. Because that's an option for parents. It's yeah, the real world, and whether things actually became more dangerous now, or because we don't know our neighbors as well, or we are so much more aware of all the negative news and stuff that we are more scared. I don't know, like if I look outside, I'm like, do I think today like a child, like say walking to school or something, is more unsafe than when I was a kid? I don't know. Actually, I don't know what the straightforward answer is, but I do think there's a lot of things that influence, parenting choices.
Yeah. So I think um because earlier when communication was so limited,
Mm-hmm.
your community wise, you would always stick to you would stick within your community or people with you relate to, right? Very easy. It's easier to do that rather than
So you had to
hang
know
out.
your neighbors because that was the only way to keep your kids safe versus air tagging their backpack and tracking them, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So even this is the more interesting example is when Indians went off to America back in the day. Actually, it's even now. But when Indians go leave India, they go hang out with only Indians because that is the
Yeah, some of them did.
easiest.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
like,
So
oh,
then
we'll all lost and let's figure it out together, you know?
exactly that happens when you have communities which have not I mean in terms of communication it becomes a problem. Back in the day it was like you as an Indian you look for more Indians so that you can basically get together. Now it's become like, oh, I'm more comfortable with Indians, I don't want to talk to anybody else, I'm happy in my bubble. That's what has
Yeah,
happened. So you see the same situation but from two different approaches, right?
true.
So it's very interesting how things have worked out and how things have been. But yeah, today is has the world always been a
Mm.
bad and evil place? Maybe, maybe not.
I
But
mean, the
have
nature of dangers may have changed, but I think our coping strategies have changed. But fundamentally, humans are humans, right? I think roughly the
yeah, I
situation
mean,
is
but yeah, absolutely. So humans in the end, there are really, really nasty human beings, and there are really, really good human beings
kind
as
of.
well. So,
Mm.
and as Dumbledore once said, to put it, there's always a choice between what is easy and what is right.
Right.
So yeah, a lot of people choose the easy
Speaking of
way.
Dumbledore, are you looking forward to the HBO series of Harry Potter? Like getting into the books in detail? They're making like series now. I'm scared after the Game of Thrones debacle at the end, but I'm hoping. I love the series. It meant a lot to me growing up, actually. So
To be honest, I love the books. I
yeah,
prefer the books. I want to stick with the books. One thing the movies did was give my imagination a little bit more color, I would say.
yeah. But I'm saying with the mini series, they can go into more details of the book. So I was curious if you were excited or planning to watch it just to see how much more was captured when you have 15 hours for Philosopher's Stone instead of
Yeah, I don't know. I
1.5.
don't think so. I'm not really.
Yeah,
I am not really looking forward. Not even. I'm not.
yeah.
I heard about it, but it's not on my agenda. I have
Radar.
some. Yeah, I have so many other things right now. Um, since I got off Instagram
Hmm.
and X, and I've been limiting my presence
Full.
on the internet. Other than this podcast, I actually came across something very interesting, and that's called a book stand.
Okay.
A book stand. Basically, it's a stand where you put a book on, and it has these two pinchers where basically hold the book in place.
Oh, that one, like the gadget. And so as you're flipping the pages,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
so you have ones that can actually like go up and down with the pages, and then you have book clips. The Japanese folks also used to use those and
So,
all. But yeah.
so I have this book stand, and it's been like the greatest discovery for me personally because I love books. But the problem I used to have was holding them. And then if I put them on the table, I would bend too much and my neck
Hmm.
would hurt like crazy. And then it would
Wait, so
affect
you
my
still
eyes.
you still prefer the physical paper books to like Kindles and digital books and stuff? You like
I do both. I do
you
both.
do both? Yeah.
I do both because I do enjoy a good book. Like, so for example, I'm still,
Mm.
say
Mhm.
I still have this book. I mean, I'm
I
reading
think you should
in
start your
bookstand.
own book club there if you haven't. Like it's pretty
No,
cool. A lot of
I'm actually,
I don't have a
I
lot of
don't.
folks who read anymore.
I mean, I actually enjoy the fact that I can read a book and I don't have to give answers on books, and I'm very happy about it. Very, very, like, I don't have to be scrutinized on how much I read and how long, because currently I'm reading, I think, 3 or 4 books at the same time, and I love the fact that I can shift over and
Mhm.
just read. So yeah, so the book stand,
Yeah. So
so
there's
book,
a new concept that the book stand is sounds like a is it a standalone one or just like on your
I
table?
think it's like this.
Ah, Cool. Yeah. So
So
like you have a desk light, you have like a desk stand for your books and stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So I also went ahead and bought a little. Where is it? Where is
The light, the clippy light thing.
yeah, it's a clippy light thing. So you put the clip
Mm-hmm.
on, yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
So
Well, welcome to 2011.
yes, this
Actually,
is
yours is wireless, so yeah, it's an updated one. But yeah,
if
I
I had this
remember.
in school, if I had
Yeah.
this in school, I would actually do much better because the problem I realized was ergonomics back in school was like you had to bend and then after 45 minutes you're looking up and you can't
Also,
see anything.
you were much taller than the average kid, right? And so the desks and chairs and heights were not optimized for you at all.
No. And I also think that the biggest problem in school was I don't want to go too much into this, but the biggest problem in
Mm.
school was that I sucked at school because I was at the back of the class and I could never hear the teacher. So all the noise that emanated in front of me was so loud, it would drown what the teacher was saying.
And because
And
you were so tall, you weren't allowed to sit up front because you
yes, so I was the dunes of the class, not because
was
um,
stupid, but because you didn't have
I
the
couldn't hear.
full
So
sound.
99% of the times I'd be like, huh? So that's what happened. And I kind of realized that only see the classes which were very well handled, for example, Mr. Hart, I wasn't too bad. I did pretty decently. History, Mrs. Main, she did such a great job in controlling the class, was amazing. Troy James was amazing. So I
Puya
always
was great
excelled.
too. Yeah.
Puvaya was also good. Yes, Kim
English.
Oja was also very good. So whatever classes were very well handled, I did pretty decent. But the classes which basically sucked, oh my god! In terms of how they handled it, it was a complete disaster.
So if
Like
there was
Sita
chaos,
Lakshmi,
you couldn't learn. Yeah, yeah. Like in
because you
chemistry
cannot
and
hear,
physics
right?
and all. I
Yeah,
could understand that.
you cannot hear, right? When you sit at the back of the class, you cannot hear. Like who was that teacher who I walked out of? I forget her name in the 11th.
Nair.
Nair, yes. Oh my god. That was
Nickname Suro, yes.
Suro one. But yeah, with her also, she said she used to come into class and then she used to start talking to everybody in the front and then everything got lost in the back,
So
right?
a lot of teachers also had that bias because our ratios were crazy. If you think about it, one teacher trying to control
60
like 60
students.
students and stuff, and especially middle school and all, right? You have
Right.
these, we were probably asshole puberty kids. Like, I know I troubled teachers when I was bored, so full credit to that. Um, so they would, instead of, so the Indian, this goes back to also like a philosophy, right? It's kind of interesting. And I've seen this not just in India and some other things. Teachers give more resources to the kids that are doing better rather than the reverse. The only attention that's given to the weaker students is like a scolding or shaming or something like that,
Right. Yeah.
versus, like I didn't pay attention in class most of the time, like at all. Like I would be reading comics and stuff behind it, but I would read at home or I would study at home, and like I knew the things, so it didn't hurt me as much. But there was a lot of kids that later on in life, as we grew up, we found out that someone was dyslexic. People had ADD. Someone was, like you said, you couldn't hear. There were some kids who couldn't like see, and they would get headaches. But people would tease them for glasses, so they never told anyone that they were struggling to see and stuff. And all of these sort of dynamics, which yeah, it's not fair. The teacher doesn't have to take care of everything, but often there's a difference between teachers who genuinely, you could see the difference between teachers who genuinely like taught because it was like a calling and they loved to teach and they wanted people to learn, versus those who are like, yeah, this is my job and I just wanna, like, as long as I can get, like, if 5 kids in this class can get 98. I remember this line also: if Nipun can get 98 out of 100, why can't you? like it was literally put to another
Yeah,
kid
it was
who had
always there
failed.
was always
Yeah,
a
the
it was always a
comparison, right?
comparison, right? Yeah, like everybody looked at I'm sorry, Bharat, but everybody looked up. All the
Yeah.
parents looked up at you. Oh, Bharat is doing very well. Well, Mama,
Or
Bharat is
Renuka
sitting in the
or
or
Siddharth.
Renuka, they're all sitting in the front. They have almost the full attention of the teacher. They are they are forced to be forced to concentrate. I am sitting completely at the back because of my height. You're very proud that I am tall and I'm shooting baskets in the basketball court. But hey, it does affect how I'm going to learn in a class. The acoustic was so bad. Oh my god,
And it
five
used to get
kids.
so hot. I remember, like I used to
Yeah,
always, again, I'm a selfish, assertive person, so I always sat next to a window and near a fan or something like that. Like I was like,
right.
I refuse to be uncomfortable in this class. But again, like if you're an introverted kid. And you're getting overheated, or you're the fact that we had to ask permission to drink water in many teachers' classes, right? Or people
Yes.
could deny going to the restroom and things. I couldn't imagine the strain that that put on some kids. And our entire education system is so dependent on a certain kind of intelligence, right? The auditory intelligence, the visual of the world. But some people excel in a different kind of learning. And they weren't catered to at all. Like there was no options also. And unlike today, they weren't YouTube tutorials and Khan
Yeah.
Academy and
Or
the
AI for that
interactive,
matter.
yeah, or not even just AI, right? Like the gamification. Like I had a computer at home. I and my parents were like, yeah, you can't play all these nonsense shooting games and all, but here's some learning ones, which was somewhat on anatomy, somewhat on math, whatever it is. But that gamification, like it helped me learn it, like visualize things so much better and all. But that's a privilege, right? How many people had that? Maybe in our school, quite a few did, but it's very different. You realize that in school, now we also were a privileged group of kids that our job was to study, right? Like it's not like a lot of the government school kids and stuff where you have to go home, or you had to work, or you have to worry about your next meal or anything. So in some ways, if you think about it, it should have been a level playing field, right? Equal opportunity, whatever. But without even knowing that there's gaps, it becomes unequal then. Like you
Yes.
don't know. It's okay saying, yes, this is the playing field, this is how I'm teaching. But if some of these students were like, oh, yeah, I have trouble reading because the letters are switching, so I need to do X, at least if
Like in
you're
case of a
aware.
dyslexic, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Like Karan Joseph was a great example of a musical prodigy kid, but dyslexia. I couldn't read, and he would stutter because of that, and he gets dismissed. And just because someone can't read doesn't mean they're stupid. Just
Yeah.
because someone cannot memorize, like I'm shit at memorizing like history, numbers, and things like that. But that was not something that was and my spelling is shit. But that is not something that was commonly tested, right? They won't say stand up and spell this word, or which year was this born. Like sometimes it happened, but because those things weren't highlighted as weaknesses, I wasn't seen as a dumb kid. Whereas the types of questions that they would ask, that quick mental math or that pressure, come write it on the board. A lot of kids who knew the answer, that public going up there, right, they would freeze. I
Yeah.
remember that. Like, why? And I would get into trouble for like whispering the answer to those kids. But that it's a different reason why they're not able to answer. And I don't think even today, the sad thing, right, Vivek, I visited, I don't think too much has changed in most education things in India. It is still more of a, yeah, it's the survival of the smartest of it is, and you adapt to us, not the other way around. Even in
Yes.
schools when you're paying a crazy amount, I
Yes.
get it, so but it's sad. One of the biggest things, if I wish could change, and I think would make the biggest difference in countries' attitudes, a lot of things, is kind of access and education more than anything else.
So I think my thought on this is that every kid, whoever it is,
Deserves
however
it.
they are, no, I believe that they can learn anything you give it
Mhm.
to them.
Yeah.
It's just how they understand things. That's it.
You have to give
Not
them space and time.
not everybody understands things directly. Like some kids understand the 2 plus 2 concept with two oranges or with oranges.
Hmm.
Sometimes you need two buses and sometimes you need two planes. I'm just giving you an example as to how varied it can be. Sometimes it can be 3 plus 1 is equal to 4, right? But how do you make a kid understand? That is something uh, that I believe our systems still lack, that the how do you make a kid understand the basics.
Or
And
they don't care about making them understand. They just care about reproduction of the
correct.
information,
So
not comprehension.
if you take a concept like integral calculus and differential calculus, right,
Hmm.
there has to be some basic understanding of it before you explain it to the kids. I still remember the first day when we walked in. It's so vividly pictured in my head, that beep come in. I'm sorry, but she was so useless as a teacher. She'd come in to teach us mathematics, and then she's like, "Okay, we're going to learn integral calculus. There was x square is equal to what? Integration of what? Differentiation of dx,
Dx over
dx."
dy.
So what do I know? X integration of x square is equal to 2x. Correct? Am I
2x. Yeah.
correct? So integration of x square is equal to 2x. Okay, why? How? Where? What? Where are you? What are you connecting? Where is this x coming from? What is going on here? So I think that was something that was so. I was like, there is no connection. What are you connecting it to? What is the background? What is the philosophy? What is
Yeah.
none of
And,
it?
and with today's thing of AI and stuff, right? Like that's what I was talking to some teachers. One of the biggest things, like whether it's in jobs or schools and all, and where India is really going to struggle, it's not about someone else writing the code for you, is that thinking outside the box, like innovative thinking.
Imagination.
Yeah, innovative
Imagination.
thinking, questioning, and critical thinking of a
Thinking.
situation.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That is not taught, that is not fostered, and in fact, in many times, that's actively punished out of the
Yeah.
child,
Yeah.
that curiosity, that extra. And that is, that is why we will lag behind, and not because, oh, we have so many people, so there's no jobs. There is jobs, there's tons of jobs and opportunities. um they just they're trying to create copy paste bots as such, or rather than anything else.
Absolutely. It
A
also,
manageable population, not a
yeah,
creative one.
yeah. So it's basically, that's the biggest hurdle, right? Because I mean, in India for that matter, it's always about what happens after a certain stage of life and where you need to be in, right? I mean, you need to get a job and you need to settle down, and everything is about that template that everybody's created.
The next
And
milestone, the next milestone, the next milestone.
correct. It's not about,
And you
okay,
never
what,
stop to ask why. Like, wait,
yeah,
when did I sign up for this destination? Like, are you sure I'm on the right train? Like, you're not allowed to question if you're on the right train.
exactly. So that, what is surprising? A lot of it is also sort of, um, a lot of it also happens in Germany.
I'm
They
sure.
have a template. They have a template. Like
I
failure
mean,
is a
German
no-no.
is known for the efficiency, right? Like they like even their museums, even their products. They're like, no, if something's the best way, why do we need variety? Like there's literally quotes about, no,
Exactly.
you find the optimal toaster and just make that one toaster. Like, yeah.
Yes. So I think that is something and that is where the Americans differ, right? They just
Yeah.
say,
They're
throw
chaos
money,
agents, man. Chaos.
everything. Just throw money, invention. It fails, okay. I want the rocket to blow up. Why? Because only then I can learn what went
Learn.
wrong,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right? So
The
that
fear
I
of
find,
failure, right? That's
yes,
celebrating lessons learned over penalizing missteps of failures. Or,
yes, yes, yes. So failing is something so that is what I find. That is
Tolerance
so
for failure, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So tolerance for failure in India is so
So
limited, very, very limited, right?
a
Very,
lot
very
of it
small.
a lot of it because of the scarcity mindset, right? Because you're like, oh, there's only so many seats and there's only so many things and they just filter it out. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I get why things are a certain way, but even when plenty happens, right? That's what I mean when I judge things, or when I say that they're still not teaching it that way. I'm not talking about the government school kids who or the teachers who are teaching hundreds and all. I'm talking about even the best of the best. there's only probably 1 to 5% of folks that in India, or students, that are given that sort of that freedom, that holistic approach, and even the supportiveness of the parents at home, right? Like you have to have it all induced. But homeschooling's on the rise in
Yeah.
in the wealthier communities in India. A
Yeah.
lot of people are just getting personal tutors and things and homeschooling their kids because they're like, yeah, I don't want, like, that's rubbish. Like I was surprised at the number of like now we are old enough where people have kids, right? And some of my older colleagues and things, their kids are like fifth, after sixth grade or seventh grade, and many of them are like, yeah, we're thinking of pulling them out of school and homeschooling them. Like whatever they're learning, it's so outdated and it's so unnecessary. I'd rather, like, my kid likes robotics, I want, like, let him go work on that. Like, the rigidity of our curriculum and the lack of updating it. It takes 10 years to update a textbook. Why?
So that's how I said, right? I mean, AI is the great leveler.
Okay.
A little snippet from my life I wanted to say regarding
Mhm.
this. I remember, I don't know if you know, that I failed math in 12th grade. I don't know
Mhm.
if you remember this.
Yeah.
And I waited 1 year before I went to Ramaya because I had to re-give the exam,
Re-give the, yeah, I remember.
right? So I re-gave the exam, and I was actually excited to go to Ramaya as an
Yeah.
engineer. Sorry, as a student. I was like, yeah, I'm going to learn something new. But I'm really, I was so disappointed when I'm like, first of all, in school, now this is going back, at least the teachers, I would say 50% of the teachers, they had a decent command of the language and they
Yeah,
could
we went
explain
to a
things.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But it was terrible when you went into an Indian engineering college because, first of all, the textbooks they ask you to refer are the textbooks written by the teacher or professor in class, and the English was horrendous. Like, I had to at some point rewrite textbooks to understand what this person was trying to say. It was like, and then they expect you to learn what they are teaching, what they think that they are teaching you, and it is almost impossible.
And
So
they
I
just
never,
talk at you, right? And it's just a
yeah.
bigger classroom. I
We
remember
had 70 kids, 70, 80 kids once in our classroom.
in like
And
a
I'm like,
hall. Yeah.
yeah. And I'm like, what is going on? Right. I mean, I'm here to learn, but here it seems to be like another mill. You throw students in and then students come out so I think that was something that I found very disappointing going into engineering. I thought I'd learn something, but instead it was worse than school.
Yeah. It stamped the love of science probably out of you more than anything.
And yeah, and then I would say, coming back to the topic where you had to three things that identify me.
Mm.
The third thing would be is I am an engineer, but mostly I learned a lot of things back in school. So engineering was,
I mean, you can still say you're a student, right? You're still learning. You can
oh yeah,
identify
yeah, of
yourself.
course. I'm still a student for sure, but my
Yeah.
last grade learning in any institution was my school. After that, it has all been hogwash, to be honest. So, but yeah, um, that was something that I wanted to point out as well. That when I went to engineering, it was like, so yes, today hopefully AI will change the way things are, and yeah, it is scary as hell. Oh my god! When I see the other day, I used Claude just to do something basic. I asked it to make a calculator. Okay, it was, yeah, calculator, fine. Then I said, okay, convert it to something that I can put in my iPhone. And
Mm.
then it actually coded it for
Made
my
the app.
iPhone. And then I uploaded it onto my iPhone and I'm like, what?
Mhm.
This is amazing. And I
Yeah.
suck at coding. I completely suck at coding. So that was like the biggest win for me.
Yeah, so I think the barrier between ideating and building, right, has been shrunk by AI significantly, at least on the digital front. I think we're out of time, but this was a interesting conversation. I don't know who else would like to listen to it, frankly, because it's not a particular topic. It's just
It's not
discussion
supposed.
of life. So yeah, but I don't know
It's
who your audience is essentially. But it's
I don't do this. Let me explain that. I don't do this
hmm,
podcast to get some audience. I don't do this. I just
You
do it
don't do
for
it
the
for
conversation.
external. I get it. Yeah.
I just do it for conversations. I enjoy the conversations. I stick to the purest form of podcasting is just a conversation. We went into so many different tangents
Yeah, I get it, but I'm saying, but then why do a podcast? Why not just be like, hey, let's hang out and have a conversation? Like, what do you ever
because
look at the recordings again? Do you look at the
oh yeah,
transcripts?
yeah.
Oh, you do?
It is
Okay.
also it's also very interesting, right? For me, it's I enjoy the process. I really
Mm.
enjoy the whole process of getting someone over and having a conversation. And
Mm.
how many times are you going to sit and talk just out of the
Yeah,
blue?
chai pe charcha types,
Try
huh?
pe charcha, right? But this is more interesting. It's a platform. It's an interesting platform. So I don't do it. I don't do it for what how would you
No,
call it? Content that is
you're not trying to curate a particular content. You're
absolutely not.
just, all right. But
I
yeah,
enjoyed
this
this.
is fun.
This was a great conversation. So
Mm.
thank you so much, Pooja. I hope you enjoyed
Sure.
yourself. It was great.
Yeah, it was nice. It's nice to have, like I said, a conversation where the only agenda is to have a conversation, right?
Exactly, exactly. I hope you would come back again at some point whenever you are
Sure.
up for it. Yeah.
Yeah, we can discuss dystopian AIs and whatnot.
Oh, that would be amazing. That would be a conversation. Like I have these interesting thoughts. Like it is so crazy when I look at the amount of information and geopolitics and then I'm trying to see what the end of all of it is and then I come up with this very weird answer and then I'm like, who can I discuss it with? Who can follow me down this rabbit hole? But
No, but so many friends of mine from the US kind of reached out to me during COVID, because in 2011, when I was gonna like leave or go my masters and stuff like that, there was this random conversation happening of, oh, how do what do you think the biggest threat to the world is? And they were like, okay, terrorism and this and that and all. And then I said a biological pathogen, because it'll cause a pandemic, because we're so connected and no one shares information because we're so suspicious. And so when COVID happened, some three or four people who had been in the room, they're like, man, like that time we laughed at you saying Pooja is afraid of bugs, and like she's like, you were fucking right. Like,
yeah,
like you
yeah.
everyone was talking about like guns and military thing, and you were like
Wow.
a germ.
Yeah, crazy, right? I mean, you go down the rabbit hole and you can say the answer out loud, and everybody's looking at you with weird eyes. And then after a few years, when it happens, you turn back and
Yeah.
say, "Ha, I didn't want to be right, but I am." So,
Yeah,
well,
it's like, I have a good day, enjoy your time, and yeah, I think you have a very interesting identity. You can be all of the above. You're quite the global citizen, and so
I
I don't think you
am
have to identify to any border personally.
exactly. I am everything and nothing, and that's absolutely fine.
You're
All
not
right,
Nani.
I'm not naughty, bro. All right, take
Bye.
care. It was fun. Bye bye.